Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the show. So glad that you're here. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Hopefully you had a great Monday and are settling down to kind of hang out with us for just a little bit. Tonight, we're talking about ministering in the digital space. If you get online, it seems like the space has been taken over by everything. Education, schools are out there. All these wellness people are talking, coaches are out there, but one of the places where it is making a big impact is in the spiritual community. And tonight we've got a special guest who's going to talk with us, telling us his story and how he and his team are impacting people where they are, how they're sharing a message on how to incorporate spirituality and religion and connection with God, connection with each other in the digital space. You do not want to miss this, and I'm glad that you're here tonight. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. And here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, create the life you've always wanted, and go to the next level. If you're new, just make sure you put new in the comments because we would like to welcome you with a hand clap and some music. And welcome you to our community. If you have questions, make sure you put the questions in the comment and put a Q and a colon in front of it so that we'll know that that's one that we need to get to. And I already see somebody, Eagle VP says, evening, Dwayne, will watch the replay as I live in the UK. Well, I'm glad that, man, that you are hanging out with us just for even a little bit. So thank you for coming through and being here. If you're out there right now and you're getting ready to join us, let your family, your friends know that we are here and that we are working to continue to build the community. We are in March, y'all. We're at the end of March, and you've heard me say, as we've been going through these months, this is the end of the first quarter. There's a lot of stuff that you plan to do, whatever it was: lose weight, get better blood sugar control, wake up in the morning, do a devotion, start a business, read a book, write a whatever. We're into the first quarter. And if you've not done some of that, you've not lost, because we've got the rest of the time to go. But I want you to make sure that as these last few days of the month are coming and going, that you are assessing where you are. You know, big companies, that's what they're doing. They're looking at the stuff that they plan to do at the end of last year and saying through this quarter, hey, did we do what we said we were going to do? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to make some other changes? Do we need to look at things a little differently? And we can do that for ourselves, because remember, in 2023, we're no longer allowing life to happen to us. We're taking charge for ourselves. If you've not already done so, go ahead and make sure that you get over to our, let me make sure I can pull this up, get over to our YouTube channel. And if you remember, we did a bunch of videos out there, and let's see if I can get that up for you guys. If I can, great. If not, but all those, here it comes. Yeah. So all of those videos are out there. The ones that I want to point out to you, we did in November, 25 videos on diabetes. So Diabetes 101. Right. So that's an entire series that we did for if you're out there and you have diabetes, you have people in your family who have diabetes, you are a physician who are taking care of patients who have diabetes. This is a great resource for them to have. We did also back in the fall, actually August, we did a series called Designing a New You, where we talked about designing or coming up with our goals, our mantras, coming up with how do we know what our purpose is? All of those things are out there. Make sure you get out there and make sure you watch them, okay? All right, so Pastor Wade, he said he's new. So let's go ahead and give him a hand clap. Yeah, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? Here you go. Well, Pastor Wade, we welcome you to the community, welcome you to the area. All right, so that's it, guys, right? So remember, we got all that stuff that's out there. Make sure you are out there and make sure you are watching. A couple of shout outs as we go through, like you know we do. We have some people who've been engaging with us, and in particular, I wanted to give a shout out to Wendy. Wendy's a new subscriber. Thank you for coming on. All the folks who are in our Sugar Busters with Dr. Dwayne Wood, we are day number 13, y'all. And that's been a 15-day program that we've been doing. We've been having a great time over there. And then Pethui reminded me that we did a video back last year. And when I posted it, it was a live video. The audio was gone. And so she said, hey, Dr. Wood, remember you said you're going to do that for us? And we did it. And it's in the group that we did in November with the Diabetes 101. Okay, so make sure you guys get back out there. Anyway, with all that said, that takes care of all of the preliminary stuff, right? So I've got a special guest. Like I said, Pastor Roger Wade is with us, yo. This is going to be fun. He was born on the island of Trinidad, and Trinidad and Tobago has a very special place in my heart because that's where my wife is from, right? He was educated in Trinidad, New York, Maryland, and then Oakwood University, which was Oakwood College at the time. I went there as well. He has a passion for the youth and spent 42 years working in the area of youth ministry. He was ordained in 2003 and has baptized over 800 people and has pastored all over the United States. He currently serves as the Conference, Communication, and Public Relations Director for this conference, which covers Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then parts of the Florida Panhandle. He is a pastor, a teacher, a writer, a preacher, producer, coordinator, husband, father. Man, I can't say much more about this man. But he currently serves as one of the hosts of a very special show that's going on, the Pastors Roundtable. It's a weekly online show where they discuss ministry and being relevant, resourced, and real. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and get Pastor Roger Wade up on the stage. Pastor Wade, we're so glad that you're here.
What's going on? What's going on? All righty.
Yeah. Man, I'm so glad that you were here.
Yeah, thank you. We've been looking for this moment for so long. We finally got here.
That's right. And so that you guys know, Pastor Wade, I have known who Pastor Wade was. I don't think he knew who I was. He knew I was from New York, and recently, actually within the last 5-6 years or so, Pastor Wade, we started seeing each other as we dealt with we were dealing with youth ministry, Bible Bowl, and so forth. But I'm glad I got a chance to really to know him a bit, and then I'm excited that he's here on the show.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Normally I'm on the other side, but today I am the guest, and so I'm just appreciating what has happened over as we were preparing for the show. Dr. Wood, I've been watching, learning, seeing. I'm excited you are in this space also. I want you to know that this has been a joy to learn how to navigate through this space. So I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Awesome. Well, I read a bunch of your stuff, and we'll get a little bit to that. But why don't you just take a moment and just tell a brief, maybe 10 seconds, and tell the people who Pastor Wade is.
Oh, wow, 10 seconds. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Maybe it's too much. I'm just so excited to just let you know I love ministry. I love particularly I'm excited about the church's greatest resource we have, which is our young people. So I'm excited about that. But I'm just excited about ministry. I like to see the light bulb go on when people get to share their faith or get to know more about their faith or get to know more about the things, the talents, the skills that God has given them. That's what gets me up every morning. I'm excited about that. So I'm kind of like to be behind the scenes, but every now and then you got to come out front so you can and share. So you're going to have to draw some things out from me, but we praise God for the opportunity to share tonight.
Awesome. I love that. And so we're in we're finishing the first quarter of the year, and we were just talking about how much you have been and are planning to do in terms of traveling and all the ministries that you're involved in. And we'll come back to that in a minute, but tell us when you were growing up, right? We're going way back now. What did Roger Wade want to be?
Wow, wow. When I was a kid, I was excited about being a fireman or a person in the military. I just enjoyed being in something that had a uniform. So I guess that's what gravitated me to Pathfinders. I love Pathfinder ministry, and so and I didn't want to get into the ministry, but I wanted to do something like that. So, but I ended up um, coming to the time when I had to make a choice. I ended up saying I want to be a pilot. So that's probably where I got my bug to travel. I love traveling. So I wanted to be a pilot when I was leaving junior high school. My guidance counselor said, "You playing the band, and you also want to be a a pilot. How you going to do that?" So I ended up trying to do the pilot thing. It didn't work out. I ended up trying to do computers. It didn't work out, and the Lord tapped me on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I can use you." And so I ended up in the service of the Lord, and I'm excited about how God has moved me through His hoops for me to get to where I am today.
Wow, wow. So you're born in Trinidad and went to school in Trinidad and then New York. And so when you were in New York, how old were you at that time?
So I came to the United States around age 11. At this point in my life, I was just following my mom, who came to the States before, made a home for us there in Brooklyn. Brooklyn. When you come from the Caribbean, is either you go to Miami, or you go to New York, or you go to Toronto, or you go to London. I ended up in Brooklyn, and I came to Brooklyn, and I didn't feel like I was anywhere else but the Caribbean, because if you know Brooklyn, you're literally in the Caribbean North. And so I really came at 11, and when I came, I had such a strong Caribbean accent, and I had to learn the hard way how to talk, how to be, to be accepted into the American culture. So, I was teased a lot, and so I learned to speak very clearly. I try to articulate, and that has helped me in this space, and it has helped me in my ministry as a pastor.
Isn't it amazing how, and sometimes in the moment, right, we don't see this, but years later we're looking back and say, hey, that thing that I thought was bad, it may have been bad, but look at what has allowed me to do here in my current space.
That is so true. And even the fact that I wanted to learn to speak properly, or make sure that I enunciate and share, has given me a love for the language. So I have, I don't mind learning new words. It doesn't mean I remember them, but learning new words, making sure that I say it the right way. Even to this day, when I prepare to preach, I write a manuscript out, make sure that I'm painting the picture correctly, sharing the word. It drives me crazy to try and just speak off the cuff. But if I have time to really put words together, look at the situation, I feel much better carrying a manuscript into the pulpit.
Awesome, awesome. And so growing up in Brooklyn, and so I'm from Brooklyn, so
Mhm.
I came. I was a little younger than you were when you came, but that was the place, right? So
That was the
you
place.
and you're right.
You
Being
know
in
what's
Brooklyn,
interesting? Yeah, you know what's interesting? When I grew up in Brooklyn, I grew up in Brooklyn. I did not travel to Manhattan, Bronx. I stayed in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn. I went to school in Brooklyn. I slept in Brooklyn. I ate in Brooklyn. I shopped in Brooklyn. It wasn't until I came away to Oakwood, and when I came back to New York to get to be assigned my first church, I actually ended up in Harlem, and it was
mm,
the first time I've been to Harlem, and really, made that a stop for me. So it was a unique experience, coming back to Brooklyn to see New York in a different light. Going to Harlem. I was in Brooklyn. I lived in Queens for a little bit, but I still call Brooklyn home. But then I learned Manhattan. I learned the Harlem. A lot of my members were in the Bronx, so then I learned the Bronx. And then I left and went to upstate New York, went to California, came back, went to Texas, and came back to New York. And I pastored in Brooklyn, and I met people from Staten Island. So in my time in New York, I actually connected to every borough in some way, shape, or form, and I'm excited about that.
Well, that's good because because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. In fact, my family, except for one person, everybody lives in Brooklyn still.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Answers
So
my
there you
question
go.
right there. Brooklyn, Crooklyn, as somebody would say. But it's and it's interesting. Some people don't realize how unique each borough in New York City is self-contained. You can literally live in the borough without leaving. It's only recently that when you talk to young people, young adults, that you're now hearing that they may have a job in Manhattan, but they come back to, they stay in Brooklyn, they shop in Brooklyn. So it's a unique situation. I've not seen that in other cities. In other cities that I've lived, you don't have that much of a demarcation in neighborhoods and things like that you have in New York. So you could stay in Brooklyn. You could be where a lot of Trinis live, or you could be where a lot of Jamaicans live, and you get the food, and you get the flavor of the Caribbean, and so you don't really miss. You don't really realize that you're not in your home country. You think you're there because of the sound that you hear, the people you know, the things you do, the food you eat. So it's a unique experience you have there in New York when it comes to the Caribbean and New York.
Definitely, definitely. So you had some other things you wanted to do growing up,
Mhm.
but then you got this pull, this call to ministry. Tell us a little bit more, and you mentioned a little bit, but tell us a little bit more about how that happened, what was going on in your life at the time.
I was a weekend warrior when it came to my faith. I went to school, and I lived that life, and then on weekends I became the church person. I went to church. I was involved in being an usher. I was involved in pod finders, and so the weekend warrior in me was where I really exhibited my faith and maybe even grew my faith. And so I really never thought of ministry as a full-time position or being a pastor. I felt that, nah, I'm not good enough to be a pastor. You got to be too good to be a pastor. But somehow I tripped into this. And I had about three people who actually talked to me. I decided the one year I decided to do camp meeting. Came up in an era where camp meeting was 10 full days, none of this weekend warrior thing. And so this what the first time I've been to camp meeting for 10 days, all of a sudden I had this urge, this call to ministry. And three people at that camp meeting tapped me on the shoulders three different times throughout the week. And they actually literally said, you need to go into ministry full time. One of them is my wife's mentor. They tapped me on the shoulder and says, you need to do this. I see the excitement in your eyes. Another one was another member of the church, wasn't a pastor. Matter of fact, they were one of those folks who just came to camp meeting and helped during the week. They've been doing that for years, and they kept calling me pastor. And I said, no, I'm not a pastor. Don't call me pastor. I'm not a pastor. I'm just here helping youth ministries. And but they kept saying pastor, 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 and I felt that was part of God's way of saying, hey, that's where I need you to be. And the third person that impacted me at that camp meeting, the youth program went to the senior adult pavilion, and because of my role in the youth side, I was kind of the platform chair on the adult side, and the platform chair for the adults. After I finished my presentation, he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, when did you go to Oakwood? And I said, I've never been to Oakwood. And he says, you need to go. So those three experiences gave me a sense of the call that God has put on my life. And so After that, interesting, the Lord cleared my schedule, literally. I was laid off of my job. I was like, what am I going to do now? I was planning to get married. Matter of fact, my wife thinks I tricked her into ministry because I was in computers, and she was looking forward to having that kind of a lifestyle. Then I switched and decided to go into ministry. And I don't think she's mad with me, but I always make that joke that I kind of tricked her into that. But we decided to give it a try, and God has blessed us. We've moved a lot, in our church. We move a lot, but we have enjoyed every place we've been. We have enjoyed ministry, and every time I look back, I see the hand of God moving in my life, sharing, directing, and giving me an opportunity to love what I do.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So she thought she was getting a computer scientist or something, right? Computer
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah, when I told her, it was funny because she lived in Jersey,
Mm.
and so her ideal was, man, she would get married and move out of Jersey, and she wanted to move to Washington D.C. because that's where I was living. So it seems to be everything was falling into place for her. And then I said, hey, I want to go to Oakwood. And so we moved to Huntsville.
Right.
And she didn't like it in Huntsville at all.
Yeah, New
But
York to Huntsville,
we
right?
New York to Huntsville. And
Wow.
but God has been good. We've
Mhm.
enjoyed our ministry. We moved from Huntsville back to New York, so that was a blessing for her to go back to where she grew up. Then we moved upstate to Rochester, New York, and that, some people felt, what did you do to the conference that you were banished to
To
Rochester?
Siberia.
I said, I mean, listen, one thing I learned about Rochester, it has a good airport. So I didn't feel banished at all because I was very much involved in youth ministries at that time, sharing the leadership skills that I've learned over the years. And so I didn't feel like we were confined to Rochester, and it was a beautiful experience. I have some good friends up there that are still friends with me, and so we had a great time. And then I got the call to go to California. I got out to the West Coast,
Mm.
and I enjoyed that. That was a good experience out in California. Lorraine and Anthony, my son, they had an opportunity to see Hollywood and experience the West Coast, and we had a great time out in California. And then I got the call to go to Texas, so I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast to the mid. I can't even call it the mid coast, but I moved to the middle of the country, and we had a good time there. And then the Lord brought us back to New York, and we had a good time there in New York. And then finally he said, hey, let's try the South. So I came to Nashville, and we've had a great time here. One of the beauties of coming to Nashville was that my wife had her brother who lived in Nashville. They hadn't seen him for a while, and so this was an opportunity for family to reconnect. So it was a great move coming to Nashville, and I've been here since.
Wow, and we are excited that you are here. So yeah. So I see. Let's see. The Pastors Roundtable is just saying hello. So happy Pastor
Yeah.
Wade is here to share. So glad that you are here. I'm not sure which one of the Pastors Roundtable that is, but
I don't know which one. It might be Pastor Paul, or it could be TJ. TJ is probably in the chat there with us. So
okay. Well,
I
thank you
appreciate their
guys for
support.
stopping through. He says, what he said, 99.99
9.9.
seconds into.
So at the beginning of our show, we normally give the guests a time frame in which they can introduce themselves.
Oh,
You told me 10 seconds,
10
but they said
seconds.
no, 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 no. We want 9.99 seconds.
Hey, I'm gonna have to change that. Thank you. I'm gonna steal that from you guys
Hey, go right ahead. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
and use it. So okay. So we're in the ministry, and you are learning. And one of the things that as I have been near and around pastors over the years, it has struck me at the wealth of knowledge that they have and the ability that they have to learn so much, because they have to become public relations,
Mhm.
counselor, teacher, pastor, preacher, carpenter. And sometimes you got to get up on, put some sheetrock up. So talk to us a little bit about what it was like. And you've pastored all over the country. So what was it like being a local pastor?
Well, I mean, the beauty of being a Seventh Day Adventist pastor is a good one. There are many pastors who have different roads in which they became a pastor, and then they have to maintain being a pastor. So some denominations allow pastors to have a second job or have a first job, and the pastoring is the second job, or vice versa. In the Seventh Adventist Church, you are a full time pastor. That's your role, to be a pastor, to take care of the flock, to take care of the congregation. So we tend to have to kind of know everything. You have to learn a little bit about finance. You have to learn a little about organization. You have to learn a little about leading an organization and things. So over the years, I picked up a lot of ideas, reading through sharing with veteran pastors, veteran leaders. So I learned a lot over the years. So as I was pastoring locally, I was trying out different ideas, trying out different things to see how that would work. And God blessed in ways that I can't even begin to share, in terms of how he I may try an idea and it worked, or I saw another pastor do it and I brought it in and shaped it and reworked it for the congregation I had, and it was very successful. And so every pastorate that I've had, I have to say, I'm not saying that everybody loved me, but I would have to say that every pastorate I had, I actually learned and grew, and it became better. I became better for it. I became better for it. So I give God praise for what He has taught me, how to deal with people, how to organize, to bring administrative skills to the table. And so that has been my opportunity to pastor in my pastorate. But one of the key things I enjoyed is actually divine doing ministry out of the box, practicing to try new things, see things that are done in communities, and try them in the community in which I am now, here in the Seventh Adventist Church. And so some of the things work, some of the things don't. We had a young adult, and that was my biggest thing: empowering our members to try the ministry that they're enjoying. One of my members brought to the table, let's do a Fourth of July picnic that the church would sponsor, and we did that. And when we this was in California, and we went to the park, and we provided food and opportunities to play games and meet with people. And so we did that. It was, I think Wednesday was 4th of July, went on the day. Thursday was not a problem, but the second year, it was interesting. The members at the church came to the picnic, or to the barbecue, and they actually sat there and began to talk about what we're going to do when 4th of July falls on the Sabbath. So we had one more year to do it in the week. So it was on a Friday the next year. And so we started to begin to pray and ask God how we were going to do this barbecue on the Sabbath. And it was interesting. Some people decided they're not coming to church that Saturday. We felt that we were going to continue with the idea to do ministry. We looked at it as ministry. We couldn't play the games like we would play the group games and stuff, but we did go back out to the park. We had actually a musical fair. We had the youth choir singing, the children's choir singing. We invited other churches to have their groups come in, and we just sang and shared to the folks in the area who was there. And it was wonderful. Doing ministry was is where I found my greatest joy and fuel to keep going and keep doing. And one of those groups, one of those days, 4th of July days, as we're closing up, I stood up as the pastor. I'm pastor of the church, and we invite you as a community to join us. Whatever we can do to support you, we'll bless your babies. We'll counsel. We'll marry you. Whatever you need us to do, this is your church. And interestingly enough, I think the next week someone came knocking on the door and said, "Look, Pastor, we need a place to meet." And they were actually a group who were trying to abate the gang violence in the community. And so they took us up on the idea of what to meet at the church. I didn't know how I could minister to that group. I prayed about it. God said, "You know what? You become their prayer warriors." And so I actually got the church information as to the number of organizations, the names of the communities in which these organizations are working, and the name of the gangs that are in those communities. And that was our prayer list at the church. And we prayed for that group. We prayed that God will bless them, that He will show, and He will bless the community. He will bless the neighborhoods. We did all that praying. Interestingly enough, they actually stayed in our building for 2 months. In 2 months, someone actually, Pete Carroll, who used to be the coach of the USC, University of Southern California football team. He's now the coach up in Seattle, I think it is. He decided, he heard about the group and gave them a building. And the group said to us, "It's because of your prayers that God has blessed them." And so I felt empowered. I was excited. I was thanking God for allowing us to be used by Him to show an opportunity where prayer can work in the community and not just in the church. And so those are some of the stories that have fueled me and got me excited about ministry, about doing local church ministry, being in the community and seeing how God works. That's what excites me the most.
Well, I love that story. Well, we are talking to Pastor Roger Wade, and we're just getting into the story, y'all. Just getting into the story. This is a great place for us to take a pause and say, hey, glad that you are there. If you're out there and watching, just go ahead and say hello. I know sometimes you're watching and you're just kind of hanging out with us. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you are there. If you've not already done so, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and let us know that you are there as well. Hit the bell so that you'll be able to see new things that we do when we do put those up. And this is a great place actually for us to take a break and do our amazing question wheel. So let's go ahead and hop over there right now. All right. So if you are new to our question wheel, this is what it is. You'll see on the screen our question wheel, and you'll see some questions on there. And I'm going to spin the wheel, and whatever question we land on, we're going to answer right here on the show. If you would like your question to show up on the wheel, go ahead and send them in. You can hit us up on any of our social media platforms. You see them there on the Medicine Bottle, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, we even have a Twitch account out there. So go ahead and send those in and we will get those up on the wheel. So I'm going to spin the wheel and we're going to land on the question and I am going to answer the question. And here are the rules. The answer I give has to be usable, has to be practical, and I have to give the answer in 45 seconds. That's right, y'all. If you all know me, I tend to talk a little longer, so we're going to try to do that in 45 seconds. And then I'm going to clip that out, and I'm going to make a reel or a short or whatever it's called on the different platforms. We're going to post it, and when you find it out there, I want you to put in the comments, #IWasThere. So #IWasThere. So you're seeing me create that here on the show in real time. If you're watching on the replay, go ahead and put replay and then #IWasThere. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and let's see what we're going to answer tonight. Okay, round and round it goes. And where it stops, I don't know. And it looks like the wheel doesn't want to stop. All right, come on, wheel. And like I said, round and round it goes, y'all. It just keeps going. All right, looks like it's slowing down. Okay, here we go. Finally. Okay. And looks like it lands on what is Kawasaki's disease? So what is Kawasaki's disease? So let me get 45 seconds up on the clock. I gotta think of, okay, here we go. So what is Kawasaki's disease? Kawasaki's disease is the most common cause of heart disease in children. It is an autoimmune process that happens, and it can cause damage to the heart, which extends into adulthood. So it starts as a child, and it can extend into adulthood, and is the most common cause of heart disease in children. Let's see. Did I make it? Did I make it? All right, I think I did it. I think I had maybe 10 or 15 seconds left. So glad that we're there. So go ahead, remember to find that on the social media platforms and put hashtag I was there. If you have questions that you want us to cover, if you want us to answer those, send them in and we'll put them on the wheel, and then we will give you a shout out for having sent that in. All right. And so we're once again talking with Pastor Roger Wade about ministering in the digital age. And we've just spent some time talking to him about his life and what he wanted to do and what he wanted to be. And let's go ahead and get him back up on the stage. Pastor Wade, thank you for coming through and hanging out with us again.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. So you've been ministering, and you have all these stories about people that you've been connecting with. You know, you told that great story about the group that met at your church, who actually really just thank you guys and say, "Hey, if it weren't for your prayers, we wouldn't have succeeded." And I'm sure you've baptized over 800 people. You're pastored thousands of people over the years. And then no conversation that we have nowadays can occur without us talking about COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So COVID comes in and everything shuts down. Like, we can't go anywhere. We're not associating. And people talked about the effect that it had on their jobs, the effect it had on their families, the effect it had on finances, for example, right? But it had a huge effect on the church.
Yes.
Because people congregated, they communed, they connected in church. Tell us a little bit about what you saw as a pastor during that time.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know what I was looking at. I came up in the church. You went to church on Sabbaths, on Saturdays, and that was the norm. If you didn't go to church, something was wrong with you. You were either sick, or you went to another church, or you were involved, you were on vacation and you couldn't get to a church. So not going to church was like, what you talking about? Um, when the COVID took place, I was at a level in the church where we did a lot of meetings. One of the things happens as you move up in administration in the church, you go from pastoring to administration, coordinating, planning, and as you go higher in the church, you actually continue to plan and administrate. And one of the things we do is we do a lot of meetings. So I'm always at somebody's meeting. And when COVID hit, all those meetings stopped, travel stopped. You weren't moving anywhere, you weren't doing anything. And then all of a sudden, we had to get on these conference calls, these video conference calls, Zoom and platform, and so that became the norm of how we were meeting. And so then we began to listen now to those groups who, particularly, I began to listen to those folks who was sharing that, hey, they've been in this space a while, and this is what we do, and this is how you can make it better, and so as I was administrating, I realized that I have to use new tools. It can't be books and icebreakers in real, or how we will go to a meeting and we'll do a PowerPoint and answer questions and interact with people. All that stopped. And so I had to make a change. I had to make a change in how I was going to meet the needs. Now, one of the beauties about what God has done in preparing me is that I had a love for technology. So it was a situation where I knew computers, I knew how to fix them, I knew how to set them up. And I was very gadgety in what I do. So I always wanted the latest and greatest and had the latest, make sure everything was the latest software. So that helped me to make the transition to an online platform. And so when I went to the online platform, I looked for ways and how I can bring the in-person experience to the online experience. And so that forced me to pay attention to those who were already in the space, what they were doing. And most of the folks who were doing this were not in the church yet. Most of the technology that we had in the church was simply to sit down and watch somebody else preach or teach or sing. We weren't in that interactive mode. And so now today so I began to listen and hear, and we started to try and figure out how we were going to do ministry in this new mode. And so the savior of this of for me was Zoom. We learned how to Zoom and have meetings on Zoom. It had some interaction options where you can ask questions, you can chat, you can put the comments in there. And so if you, as we began to listen, as I began to listen to those who were already in the space, you learned how they talked, you learned what was important, how to do certain things, and we found ourselves in a space. At least I found myself in a space that I was new to. But because I enjoyed technology and knew technology enough, I didn't feel foreign. I felt like, oh, this is not bad. I could wear this coat. I could put on these shoes. I can walk in this space. And so I began to listen to folks who were already in this space. Someone that was such an inspiration. I'm gonna call him an inspiration. Was Kirk Nugent, Bishop Kirk Nugent, as we call him, Captain Kirk. Some call him that, but he's the geek um, speaker, preacher, speaker. He was in the space, and he realized he started to help us who would now enter in the space, showing us what we should do. And he introduced me to some other folks who were doing this. They were not in the church, but they were showing folks, this community actually opened their arms and their doors to show you how you can do a ministry online. And so they would share everything. They shared the software they were using, the type of hardware they had, how they did it, how they set it up. And so I began to pay attention to those things. And I paid attention to the fact that, how can I do this and bring it into the context of how we did ministry in person? So that was something that I was looking at, something that I enjoyed learning about. And then in the midst of all of this, we began to talk to leadership about how to continue ministry in a shutdown world. And so with that idea, I ran into two of my best friends now, Anselm Paul and Dion Henry, who serve with me on Pastors Roundtable. Matter of fact, I serve with them. This was their idea. They had an idea to come on and share with the world what they've been talking about, as friends. And they decided that they were going to invite the Union Youth Director, the Union Church Ministries Director, to come on. They knew somebody important. I don't know, but they invited me to come on the first show that they had. I don't even think it was in Zoom, but the first show they had, and Pastor Anselm Paul was using Ecamm. And so when I got on the show and he was kind of showing off, and like you're doing here, showing off his prowess in Ecamm, it intrigued me. And so Kirk Nugent, Anselm Paul was another one that inspired me. We had good conversations how we can use and leverage these products to bring ministry alive. It wasn't just point and shoot, how we can bring engagement. So I learned about software packages that had games that you can play online in Zoom. Ecamm, as I shared with you, was a powerful package, especially in the Mac world. And so these things, I began to invest in these opportunities. Bought my subscription to Ecamm, learned how to lay out the screen, how to have video behind there, what kind of camera to use.
Well,
I haven't gotten
Pastor
to.
Wade, I'm gonna jump in there real quick because Pastor
Uh-huh.
Paul is in the comments.
Yeah,
so
yeah, there he
so let me
is.
just put him. He says, "There's our guy, Pastor Wade."
Truly, truly, I appreciate Pastor Paul and Dr. Dion Henry for allowing me to ride on their coattail, and that was I can't. It was 3 years ago. I think we're getting ready into our fourth year of the show called Pastors Roundtable. And what we decided to do at that time was simply get together and dialogue about ministry in this space. And then we got better at it in transitions and music and video, and so it's been a great ride. And not only was it Pastor Paul was doing behind the scenes stuff. He taught me some of that. We collaborated on some of that, and I then picked up the mantle and decided that not only am I want to be on the front side of the camera, I'm willing to be on the back side of the camera. And so with the tools that I learned and the opportunities that I had sharing with others, I began to be what is considered a remote producer, remote video producer. And so I could produce an online program just as how I produced an in-person program. One of the things I used to do prior to COVID was I was involved in a group called Beta, the Black Adventist Youth Directors Association, and I worked on the production team, and I learned a lot about producing program, making sure that it's entertaining, making sure that it's powerful, that it brings it gives you a sense of excitement, and it's not boring, things like that. So I brought all of that excitement into this digital space, and that I learned now with this new group on how we can make video and the flat screen interactive, through chat, through some of the gamifications that were out there. And I sat at the feet of Cook Nugent, Anselm Paul, many of those in the space who are teaching and showing you how to do the flow, how to bring technology together. And so we put that together. Matter of fact, when I came back to South Central to be communications director that first year, our whole camp meeting was online. And they actually allowed myself and one other person were the only two people who went to camp meeting, because we wanted to be in the space where we can we came together, and we lined up videos, we lined up the preaching videos, we did all that we can do while we were in the shutdown, and prepared a camp meeting flow that we did a virtual camp meeting online with music, with preaching, with interaction with hosts. And so it's been a real excitement to see how God has blessed. And so last year, actually, we brought pastors roundtable to camp meeting. We had the host there. We did an online live desk at camp meeting. So we did a NFL Today show, preparing for the game. We came in and prepared for the worship experience there, and then we tried it with Pelk. We were behind the scenes with Pelk, helping them with that. So we have utilized the technology that God has allowed us to connect with, and we have utilized the knowledge and the skills to help ministry get into this space. And I've been excited ever since trying doing that since COVID.
Well, I'll tell you, I've been watching you guys, and Pastor Paul, you're out there, and I watch you redesign your space. So I've been watching those videos. So at some points, I need to get you to help me out a little bit. But so excited for what you guys are doing. So somebody's out there, some church, some pastor, some lay person who is out there right now, and they're watching, and they say, "Oh man, I can't do that." I mean, those guys, they've got a gift, they've got all this equipment. What do you say to that church, to that pastor, to that person who's in the ministry space and they haven't quite figured out how to transition, if you will, into the digital space?
Well, I have to be very plain and just share that not everybody needs to be in the space. Sometimes what we provide is not necessarily, I don't want to use the word entertaining, but attractive. Let me use the word attractive for those, because once you get into space, it's not church people you're looking at, it's the world. And so when I was in California and I pastored in California, I always said to folks, you know, we live in the shadow of Hollywood, but we act like we don't know how to do stuff because we haven't really taken the lessons of how to put something together that's going to be attractive and bring an attraction to what we are sharing about Jesus Christ. And so not every church or every person needs to be in the space at certain levels. Now, some people look at Oakwood University Church and they say, "No, I can't do that." That's fine. You don't have to do what they do. We can do what you can do something a little less. You can provide a ministry that connects to your local community, but you have to also remember that your local community is also the world. And so you don't need all the big cameras. You can start with a simple iPhone or a simple Pixel. I'm using those words specifically because you want to have the quality. You want to show a certain quality. You can connect with programs like Ecamm or StreamYard, and you can provide a flow, a program flow that will be attractive to those and in your local community, yea, even the world. And the other thing too is that before you jump into this space, you need to be ready to deal with people from all over the world. There are just before you came on, you saw the chat comment from the person from the UK, and so when you came on at 7 o'clock here, it's 6 hours later in the UK, and so they'll definitely catch you on the replay. But you have to be mindful that there are people who will be watching you at all hours of the night. At one time when I first started in this space at my local church there in California, we had members who, when they went to work at 2 o'clock in their evening shift or overnight shift, they would turn on the church stream and look at the video that came on the last Sabbath. So you never know when people are watching. But in this space, this time, we need to be mindful of folks who are watching, and they are hungry for what you are providing, what you are they are attracted to what you're giving, and so you need to be prepared to respond to questions they ask. You need to invite them to go on the journey with you. A lot of folks, you know this, Doc, is that you have to invite folks to come into your space. They may pass by in the social media world. They scroll very easily. They come by to check you out, if it's entertaining, or if it's attracted to them. If it's not, they move on to the next thing. So we have to not only just be in the space, we have to be in the space to provide material or content that will attract folks to your message, attract folks based on what they are looking for. And so that's the thing. You can get in there, but make sure you have something prepared and ready to provide folks who are coming through.
Well, I love, like I said, when we started, I love what you guys are doing in the Pastors Roundtable as I watch. And the thing that I appreciate is that the conversations you were having, they are relevant to where people are and the thoughts people may have, but we haven't been able to say those things. And so you're providing a platform for them to be able to kind of filibuster. And, they're man, I was thinking that same thing. I'm glad he said that, right?
That is so true. That is so true. We are surprised ourselves when we come up with a topic, an idea, and we think about a guest who is going to come. We really don't know what the guest is going to say. We do prepare, we do share with the guests some questions, but we believe God has directed us to the guest that He has brought on the show. And then when we start the conversation, we don't know where it's going to lead. And sometimes, if you have watched enough times, my colleague Pastor Paul would say, "Wait a minute, did you say?" And next thing you know, we may be going down another tangent. But it is very organic, and that has been the blessing. And one of the things you notice about the show Pastors Roundtable, it's not us as the hosts trying to share what we know. We're literally learning. I have learned so much being a host on Pastors Roundtable. I've learned about our church. I've learned about ministry. I've learned what to do and what not to do. I've learned about how to look at ministry in a different way. We've dealt with subjects that have been that I used to think one way, but because of what we have done on Pastors Roundtable, I have a new appreciation for ministry and the way folks minister these days. So it's been that kind of opportunity in the space. And I challenge anyone who wants to get into the space to be authentic. That's the new word. Be authentic in the space. Don't try to come in a box thinking this is the only way it happens. You have to be authentic in the space, and you will be surprised how much you will grow and how much those who are watching are going to grow because of what you provided in your content.
I love it. Man, Pastor Wade, there's so much that we can cover. And we're going to have you back.
My Lord.
Because we did not even...
Roundtable, man. You're going to have to back.
We did not even scratch the surface of all the things that we possibly could have talked about. One of the things, and what I love is when I get somebody on, and one of the things that my audience loves is getting that personal piece to find out who Pastor Wade is. And so I always like to have that. But, the conversation about where we go and what we do and how we engage and all that kind of stuff, all the technical things. Yeah, we're gonna have to have a different show and just say, okay, you already know who he is. Let's just not let's just go right to it.
Got you. I'll be happy to come on back anytime. Again, I'm excited about what you're doing. I mean, you're doing what we're talking about. You got into the space, and you're utilizing the content you have, and you're sharing the content. And I know your viewers are excited about what you're doing. I'm going to have to start looking through some of the things you have shared in the past. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, we appreciate that, and shout out once again to the same guy that you talked about, Pastor Kirk Nugent, because when I came into the space, he was one of the guys that I started emulating myself after and doing things and working, and so I thank him for all he does, and he's doing for all of us in the space. Yeah. But why don't you take a moment right now and I'll put this graphic up and tell people if they want to connect with you how they can do that.
Well, you can reach me on Instagram, Facebook, or you can email me. I'm open. My role at the conference is communications director. We're going into this role for the third year now, and so we're beginning to find our feet. But you are welcome to reach out to me here, or you can reach out to me over on the platform Pastors Roundtable, the PRT.live, and we are happy to share what we know. One thing I've learned coming into this space is that those who are already in the space are just happy to share the gifts and the talents and the skills that they already had, and they don't consider it. You don't have to pay them for it. You can go to YouTube, find them all there, learn so much. And so I'm willing to pay forward what they did to me. So reach out to me. You have a question, I'm happy to share.
Awesome, awesome. And thank you, Pastor Wade. If you just hang out, we're going to close out and go from there. Okay, so just
All
hang out
right.
for just a minute. Well, everybody, thank you for being here. If you're out there, thank you for watching. If you're watching the replay, make sure you put replay in so that we know that you came by and you hung out with us. As I always say, the thing that we do here on the channel is we educate, we empower, and we encourage. And the new word that we've added recently is we connect. Okay, so we educate, we encourage, we empower, and we connect. Because as we grow this community, our health, right, endocrinology, doctor, our health is not just about diabetes and thyroid and those disease processes, but it's learning what's around our community. And what I love about our guests is that they're doing their thing in their space. And that's what I always want you to know, that they're not waiting for some big day later on to happen so they can do this. In the middle of where they are, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of changing in the digital space, Pastor Wade and Pastor Paul and his group and those who are online are making a difference where they find themselves. And that's what I encourage you to do, not just in your health, but in everything that we do. So as you look at our content covers all of those areas of your life, right? Because we're looking at a well-rounded person. And right now, we want to make sure that 2023 doesn't happen like 2022. We're not allowing it to happen anymore. We are taking charge and we're making a difference in our lives. Thank you for being here. If you've not been to our website, make sure that you get over there. That's Dwayne Wood MD, DwayneWoodMD.com. And let's go ahead and just pull that up so that you can see that. Just get over there, Dwayne Wood MD. Remember, we have that free offering that you can download, our free ebook, 7 Keys to Success, to learn how successful people create the life they want. Make sure you do that. And then keep an eye out for, we did our Sugar Busters, which is actually, we're coming to the end of Sugar Busters, 15 days. It just went by quickly. So if you're diabetic, if you struggle with weight, if you struggle with inflammation, right, this is a perfect way to get a jump start on all the things that you can do to make a difference in your life. Make sure you get over to see our blog by clicking on that, and our podcast, which comes out every Friday, both of those. And then, of course, if you are interested in any of our Sugar Busters, our programs, you can get that on our website. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a great place for us to do our thought of the day. All right, so our thought of the day is this: winning doesn't always mean being first. My son played basketball at the academy, and I remember they were playing a game, and they lost the game. I mean, it was close, but they lost. And so we come over to the court, to the side, and they are just besides themselves. And they're like, well, we did this. We did exactly what you told us. So we shot and we boxed out, and we didn't pass any balls. We didn't get any steals and so forth. And one of the things that the coach said is, guys, it's possible to play a perfect game and still come in second. And I want you to know, for me personally, that was a hard thing to learn. Because I thought if I did everything they told me, right? I went to school, I did everything my parents said, I did everything the people around me were telling me, I had to be first. But you know what? Somebody's going to be first, somebody's going to be second, somebody's going to be third. And while we always want to be the one up front, the big thing that we always want to make sure we're doing is we're doing our best. We're giving our best. We're not allowing fear to keep us from doing the things that we know we should and we want to do. You hear me say all the time, in you right now, there's a book that's not being written because you're afraid. Right now, there is a podcast. There's a ministry. There is a relationship that you have let kind of fumble because of fear. You have allowed things around you and people around you to convince you that if you can't be first, then you shouldn't do it. And I'm here to tell you, a big part of it is just the process, y'all. Sometimes I don't have to be first. I enjoy the process of doing the thing, right? So the next idea I have for a show, I do the show. It may not be the best show. Somebody else on internet, on YouTube, may have done exactly the same show, but nobody does it like Dwayne Wood, MD. Right? So when you come, you're coming and you're getting what is coming out of me, what's coming out of my heart. So as you're looking at the things in your life, as you're considering 2023, end of the first quarter, we're right there. As you're thinking about the rest of the year, don't allow fear. Don't allow other people's opinions. Don't allow your own thoughts to prevent you from reaching out and grabbing that thing that you know is out there. Because you can't succeed if you never try. Even if you're second, guess what? There are a lot of people behind you who are third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, a million. There are 7.5 billion people on the planet. If I'm second, that's okay. And that's our thought of the day. All right. And so I see some folks out there. Let me just do a quick shout out. Anthony Vaughn, thank you for stopping through, man. Glad that you're here. And let's see, we've got Montel Forge. Thank you. And one of my favorite people, Pastor Goodrich. Hey. Anthony, would you hop over to the other side and tell folks I'm on my way? Tell them I'm finishing up over here. I'll be right there. I got another thing going on in here in a minute, guys. But I am so excited that you are here, that you took time to stop and hang out with us. We're coming back next week, and we're getting stronger and stronger. We get through the year, because here on the channel, we help to educate, we help to empower, we help to encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E, and the E stands for endocrinology. Glad you're here. Good night, and we will see you when we see you.